Hello, good day to you. My name is Erik Huneker. I co-founded Diabeloop along with Dr. Guillaume Charpentier 5 years ago. I'm going to quickly present to you what the DBLG1 product is about, and then thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. And then I'll be able to share a little bit of introduction of the links that we have with the DIY community and how the DIY community inspired us at Diabeloop. So Diabeloop, what is it? It's a closed loop, an AID, however you want to call it. So we take a CGM, something that is on the market. We currently use Dexcom models, an insulin pump, not just one. We have multiple models that we work with. Currently, the one that we use most is the Kaleido pump made by Vicentra. In the middle, we put our product. It's a dedicated handset called DBLG1, which is going to take the information from the CGM and constantly adjust the insulin delivery by the insulin pump, be it on basal rates, small correction boluses, micro boluses, or large boluses as needed. The data is sent up to a web platform where the patient can choose to share his or her data with whomever really he wants. That way people with diabetes have control over their data, can also download it however they see fit. So the way we designed the system, it's easy to set up, okay? To start, you only need your weight, your total daily dose of insulin in your typical meals. I know that asking for people's weight isn't very correct in many cultures, but we need it for medical reasons. Because the algorithm really requires it. And then from there on, you hit start, and then the system starts. And it's going to do the self-learning in order to adjust to his or her body. Here you have samples of the screen of what it looks like. So you can see the glucose evolution, a graph of history of activities as well. And then you can declare your meal or your physical activity. However, the declaration of a meal is, you can put in 67 grams of carb if you want to. You can also just say small, medium, large. There's a small button called fat for fat meals, which quite a few of the patients call the pizza button. That way the algorithm knows to look for the typical response after a very fat meal. However, every person is different. Every person living with diabetes has a different body, personal lifestyle, personal preferences. And so you can actually adjust the target. You can adjust the hyperlimit. You can adjust the aggressiveness in the algorithm. And aggressiveness is just a slider. Start at 100%. You can make it down to 50 if you want an algorithm that is not aggressive. So something that's going to be taken very gently. Make sure you never have a hypo. Or if really you want something that's more aggressive, because what you as a person care most about is an average glucose level as low as possible, and you don't mind taking a rescue carb every now and then or having very small hypos, then you can put an aggressive and put the slider up to 120%. You also have a Zen mode that allows you, the system, to say, okay, for the next 3 hours, Mr. System, I've got more important things to do. Just make sure to not bug me at all. I'm driving, kids in the back, it's vacation, I'm not sure what I've eaten. I don't want a hypo, I don't want a rescue carb, I don't want nothing. So it's take it easy. Confidentiality mode, because even if, in general, you want to share your data with your spouse, your doctor, it's your choice, there's still sometimes, some weekends, for example, where you want to do things without anyone looking at what you did. Your legs have wine, do whatever activity, and the confidentiality mode means that for a day, 3 days, no data is going to be going up at all whatsoever. In order to do that, we need a complex algorithm. Why does it need to be complex? Well, because diabetes is complex, the body is complex, it's just not simple. So we have a safety layer that's a hypominimizer that recognizes risks of situations where there's a risk of hypoglycemia. So there is, it's going to cut insulin preemptively, or if cutting the insulin is not enough, it's going to tell you, hey, you do need to take sugar right now, because if not, 15 minutes from now, 20 minutes from now, you will be down. And then it also going to tell you how much, 5 grams, 10 grams, 15 grams. If there's no safety issue, it's going to go back to the heart of the algorithm. So that's where we have machine learning, advanced algorithm, however you want to call it, really. That's going to be looking at your body, the person's body and rhythm, and from the data that it has, so from the CGM and insulin data, and it's going to model it and make a forecast and for what's the best decision on insulin. However, as well as everyone knows, machine learning is not perfect. And so we have a supervisor that makes sure that the machine learning algorithm understands what's happening. It's a high reliability. And if this is not the case, it's going to hand it over to an expert system, which is a if, then, else. So basically a decision tree based on what an expert patient or a doctor or a nurse, diabetes nurse, would do in any given situation. We kind of model those decisions. And then we've got self-learning, long-term self-learning. That's going to be looking at weeks worth of data. So it's not going to making, the short term is every 5 minutes. Long term is looking at weeks worth of data and optimizing your own rhythms. Nights versus days, weekend versus week. In the future, we will have a special module for women rhythm, because hormones during menstrual rhythm does have a significant impact. It's also different for most people. The data visualization on that's one thing with the DIY. You know, we could have, and actually we did in the past, imagine our own system to show the data. But I got in touch with a couple of people in the DIY community that built Diabeloop. Diabeloop was a great solution, very US-based, hard-coded in English, but you had people living with diabetes that had been thinking about how best to show the data for literally years. So we could either reinvent the wheel or adapt Diabeloop to what we needed, which is what we did, which is why this looks a lot like Diabeloop. Now, of course, to give back, Diabeloop is the biggest contributor of code to Diabeloop. That's not Diabeloop itself, obviously, by far. We have done all the translation modules, all the mechanics inside the code to ensure multi-language support and all kinds of other implementations in the past as open source for free, because again, it's the least we could do to kind of give back to the people that have developed this. And now we continue to evolve YourLoops, which is the European implementation, which is now a medical device on its own, in order to both suit what we need and what we think is right for people living with diabetes. Now, we've had multiple clinical trials, 250 odd people, maybe 300, can't remember, over the years. And that all shows a very significant time in range gain. So baseline is people with CGM and pump. Okay, so it's people that already have a CGM and a pump, but they're just trying to manage on their own. And a very realistic population. These are people that they're not handpicked. They are people that started out, I think, around 55% time in range, which is not great, but it's actually representative. Most people, actually 55 is not that bad on average. Of course, less, way far from ideal, but it's quite representative. And so those people went from 55 to 70 or 72, 73% average. And that's what we show here, the gain in time in range. But of course, time in range is one thing. We also divide a hypos by 3, both number and time. And also, the most important thing is the feedback of people saying, I can sleep, I can do things like I want, etc. And that's the key part, because numbers is one thing, quality of life is quite another, and it is not as important. It's actually more important, because the first thing you want is be able to live your life as you want. So where are we coming from? As I said, Diabeloop, founded in 2015. Right now we've got getting ready for the commercial launch in Europe, then US after that. We're now at 100 people. We've raised 45 million euros or something like that. We've done a clinical trial on kids, highly unstable diabetes. We're adding more pumps, and that's one thing that I wanted to focus is that the whole philosophy of Diabeloop is that it's a choice of the people living with type 1. And so when we talk with people from OpenAPS, Android APS, Loop, choice really, really matters. It matters for obviously because every person is different. It also matters because in some countries, there's only certain pumps that are distributed or reimbursed. So it's also a matter of access. And that matters as much as choice, because when you're very fortunate, you live in a country where you have 5 different insulin pumps to pick from, that's great. That's not the case in every country. And so we'll add more pumps. Last week we had the announcement of the Terumo pump, which is a great little patch pump, work with Kaleido, and then we will continue integrating more pumps in the future. And so what did I focus? That's what I said, additional devices, next generation, be able to continue having both better performance, but also allowing people to choose to spend less time living with diabetes. And that's where the link with the DIY community is so important for us. We have a couple of people from DIY community that work for us. We talk with people constantly. I myself, Dana and Scott had dinner at my home twice. Consider us almost as friends. And talking with them gets insights about what's needed. Now, with one caveat, the DIY community oftentimes is not representative of the people living with type 1 at large. Okay, so you've got to take that slight, small caveat. But with that caveat in mind, you can still get what's needed. So for example, how do you design a system where adolescents can go to school with an automated system and the acceptance of that? So we're running a clinical trial soon where we've tried to think of a system where you don't need meal announcements, you don't need to bolus. The system runs automatically if you want to. We almost call that the at school mode or not at home mode. But basically the system's the alarms are pushed down to the bare minimum. You don't need to announce meals, don't need to bolus. The system just takes care of it, fully closed. That way you can be discreet. And if you have that with a patch pump, really, you can be discreet because many people don't want to show their type that they live with type 1. Other people are fine with it. There's no good or wrong. It's just everyone's different, everyone's preferences. And that clinical trial, the way we designed the system, the way we designed the algorithm, the way we designed the UI, was very largely inspired by how the DIY community designed and tweaked their system, be it Android APS or Open APS mostly, Loop a little less, so we're not that closely in contact with the people from Loop, but Open APS, Android APS for sure, Night Scout, and how they tweak the system to their needs. Look at that, understand it, understand the why, take it out, and then translate it something that has a CE mark, that is approved, that can be distributed, that can be guaranteed to work, and that can be reimbursed for the largest number of people. And that's our goal ultimately. So thank you very much for that. Get contact information here, so don't hesitate. Thank you.